what has been on my mind today is what we might be able to refer to as the highest truth, um, but you can't really refer to it as the highest truth because that sets up a hierarchy as if there are other truths or other divisions of mind which are less truthy. Um, this highest truth, as we're referring to it, is what I would describe as the highest truth of superconscious mind. Um, so, in essence, that highest truth is that um, nothing exists. Nothing exists. But we don't usually talk about that because it seems so far from the reality of our experience that it almost in many cases doesn't even help to really refer to, certainly in most contexts. But and so therefore what we often refer to instead is that everything is an appearance. Everything is an appearance. So, or another way to say that same thing, everything is an illusion. Um, I like this definition of illusion, which is that it's it's not that there's not something really there. It's that it's not what we think it is, or it's not what it seems to be. So that, of course, though, is a concession to the highest truth, which is that nothing actually does exist. Any existence we believe something has is something our thoughts, images, or memory credit to it, and as such gives it an apparent existence. But if we don't credit anything with existence, if thought, images, or memory doesn't add that credit to something, then it its highest form is that it doesn't exist. So, um, but again, that's so far removed from what seems like what our experience is that we usually don't refer to that highest truth, but we come one step down and we make a concession and we say it's everything. There really is something there, but it's just not what it seems to be, and and that can be a very helpful place for people to land on. Um, so in this meditation today, I think we're going to explore that very topic. So, if everyone is ready to jump into that, then let's get comfortable and put your phones on mute and do not disturb and such. And we'll get right into our meditation. Okay, so relax and close your eyes with me if you like. Now, the very first thing that's helpful to do anytime we would like to feel more centered, if and when our eyes are open, or meditate, if and when our eyes are closed, is to simply notice what's already here, what is already happening. And doing this allows us to step out of thinking, which attempts to figure out what to do with what's already here or what's already happening, which would immediately imply a duality. But rather than referring to any duality, looking to notice what's already here or already happening, centers us in a singularity, where we're not so interested in what to do with anything that's here, anything that's happening, but more so the singularity of what is here. And it's not that it's wrong or bad to figure out what to do with what's already here. It's just that at a certain point, we might discover the limits to fixing or changing what's here. At a certain point, we might discover that utilizing duality in order to create more of a sense of wholeness, more of a sense of fulfillment, more of a sense of peace or love isn't possible through that vehicle, through duality. And as such, give up, at least to some degree, fixing and changing our direct experience, and rather sink more deeply into it, in what we're referring to as a singularity. In this moment, what is here that could possibly be insufficient? Not that it's entirely unhelpful to think of things as being insufficient, because at times that is exactly what we should be doing. And this is where the conscious division of mind leads. But as we discover the transformative power of the conscious mind in this way, we might find ourselves using this tool in areas where its returns begin to diminish. And it's at this point that the deeper divisions of mind begin to lead. And we might oscillate from one division of mind leading to the other division of mind leading many times throughout the day. Or we may find one division in particular leading throughout the whole day. It's really you to discern the energies that would be most helpful to utilize. It is completely up to you. Completely up to how you want to experience yourself. What you feel is needed. For yourself and in relation to the whole. You are the one who utilizes these energies. The conscious mind leading, the subconscious mind leading, or the superconscious mind leading. These are all energies that you are manipulating and working with. So is true for the body. We could refer to this as just another energy in which you are manipulating and working with. Emotions could be seen as such. External things such as money, relationships, everything could be seen as energies that we are deciding how much of is needed. And in this way, there's no hierarchy of experience, no hierarchy of perspective, or no best feeling, no best way of communicating. No best amount of money. But rather, all energies that are needed sometimes, and not what's relevant other times. Sometimes it's needed to have a body, and other times it's not what's relevant. Referring to cycles of incarnation, of course, if you believe in that. It's all just energy. Now, at this point, we can ask ourselves, what what is it that is aware of all of these energies? Rather than being interested in the energies themselves, what is it that knows they are there? If we are aware of something, what is it that's being aware of them? And we ask this question not necessarily to get an answer, but to be able to direct ourselves to it. What is it that's being aware? Notice that this is where the conscious mind will always fall short, as it cannot give a name appropriate enough to represent the experience of simply being aware. The very nature of labeling or thinking is to put something in a subject-object relationship, which just does not exist in the experience of being aware. In the direct experience of being aware, there is no subject or object. There is just the experience of knowing. When we usually think of awareness, we often think of it as perhaps a person sitting on a couch watching the screen of the television. In a subject-object relationship. But rather than a person sitting on a couch being aware of what's happening on the screen, awareness is more like a screen that was magically aware itself. Where the screen, or awareness, is intricately one and the same. Whereas, to say that again, where awareness and the screen are intricately one and the same. There is no subject-object relationship. There is no point of view. which is different from thinking of awareness as a person sitting on a couch watching the object of TV. Or in the way we refer to it as in these meditations, awareness just prior to a thought, being aware of it. This is a helpful first stage, but it still exists in object-subject relationship. Ultimately, we need to collapse that distinction and just be aware. In a similar way, the awareness of the subject on the couch watching or being aware of the object of the TV collapses when the screen of the TV becomes a magical screen of which is aware. Where awareness is pervaded through the screen, through the landscape of the screen. Where awareness is synonymous and inseparable from the content on the screen. And so is true in our meditations. At a certain point, we have to collapse the idea of there being an awareness just prior to a thought, being aware of it. And notice that awareness is not separate from the thought. In fact, the thought is intricately one and the same with awareness. Much like a wave in the ocean, we can point at a wave and say and call it by name as something distinct from the ocean. But it is not separate. It is itself the ocean. So is true with awareness and its objects. Awareness is not other than a thought. A thought is not other than awareness. So is true with our bodies and the world. We are not something that of which is aware of our bodies. Our bodies themselves are intrinsically one and the same as awareness. Only a thought would suggest something otherwise. The moment we stand apart from experience and label it we step into subject-object relationship, and as such, become a separate self, become a self, an individual. But the moment we collapse that distinction, the separate self cannot stand. Notice how the separate self is synonymous with the subject-object relationship. The separate self is thinking. But you are not that, because you can be aware of it. This is the first recognition. And then after you recognize you are not the separate self and its thoughts because you are aware of it, then step 2 is to collapse that distinction. And realize that that of which is aware is inherently mixed with the objects it is aware of. The objects are, in fact, awareness. Now, from this vantage point, can we really even say anything exists? For to say something exists, we would have to call it that. And to call it that, we would have to separate ourselves from it in a subject-object relationship. And as such, accredit something with existence. Again, from this vantage point, nothing exists. Because to say something exists, we would have to call it that. And to call it that, we would have to separate ourselves from it in a subject-object relationship and say that exists. So at the highest level, we can say that nothing actually exists. Nothing stands out. For something to stand out, it would have to be in a subject-object relationship. Thought would have to separate out an object as something distinct from itself, from you, and say, that exists. But you are not that thought. You are which is aware of that thought. You are so much more. Which is stage 1. Stage 2 is, now we must collapse the idea of awareness as being something distinct or separate from the object it's aware of. And notice how awareness is intricately infused and one with the object itself, that of which previously seemed to exist, seemed to stand out. Again, you cannot point at what's left and say, there's existence, because the moment you've done that, you've separated yourself from that as something distinct from what is occurring. Again, nothing exists, because for it to do so, we would need to separate ourselves from it so it could stand out. Existence only occurs in subject-object relationship. Existence only occurs in a subject-object relationship. But notice how once we collapse the duality, our mind immediately wants to separate itself from it and look at it and say, look, existence is still there. Existence only appears to be when there's a subject and object relationship. Something only appears to stand out in a subject-object relationship. Which is the very nature of thinking itself. Appearances that we look through. Now go ahead and take a moment to ask yourself, what in this is relevant for me moving forward? What would be most helpful for me to know moving forward? What do I most need to know? And when you're ready, begin to allow the awareness that you are to filter back through into the forms of our experience and give a life to the seeming reality of the world, the seeming existence of separate people, places, and things. Allow your awareness to filter back through and give a life to duality once again. And when you're ready, and only when you're ready, feel free to take in a deep breath and open your eyes. if anyone's still existing, I would love to hear what your experience was in the meditation.